Hi, my name is Ryan. I run New Growth Strategies and I help businesses run more efficiently. And I built my own clay. It costs up to 100 times less and the output is better. And so I'm going to explain why I stopped paying for clay and built this instead, and how I do outbound research at 75% automation without sending AI spam or sounding like AI, where it's that happy medium of meeting automation with human connection and contact. I'm part of a WhatsApp group where I live of digital builders, and someone in the group asked me last week whether clay is actually worth it. And I said, clay's great. I just find it to be too expensive for what it is. I found that arming a local AI agent with a few scraping tools yields the same, if not better, output quality as the clay agent, and for up to 100 times less. Now that message got a lot of replies. So this is that video, and I'm actually going to show you exactly what that looks like. So basically there's three things going on, especially when it comes to outreach. But I want to touch first on the structure of this and how it all works. So this is essentially what the whole system looks like. This assistant has access to several tools and knowledge bases. And so the first one, and the one that the internet's really buzzing about these days, is called Obsidian. The other one is Notion, and then it's also got access to my calendar, my inbox, my meeting notes, everything. And it's structured in a way that looks like an actual team in an organization that perhaps one would build. But it didn't always start this way. For me, this all started with doing everything manually, figuring out what works. Once I have a bookkeeping model, for example, that works and it's repeatable and formulaic, then I can automate it, bring AI into it, look at something else. So before we dive into everything here, what is Obsidian? Obsidian is a locally hosted second brain for your AI. Over here on the left, we can see everything's organized, for me at least, in terms into main areas. I have areas within my areas, but this is all knowledge base stuff. Everything in here is just a big knowledge base, okay? It also has playbooks in here. So if I'm gonna do some outreach, so first I gotta do some discovery, like organization discovery. Gotta go find some businesses, find some people to talk to. This is the playbook for working that whole pipeline end to end. So that's where instructions live. This vault is where instructions live, information about my ongoing projects, perhaps like areas of my business, like case studies, offer strategies, my ICP, like this whole vault, what you see here, is the knowledge base. That's super easy for my AI agent to understand and access and interpret, so that when it's going to call certain tools to accomplish certain tasks, it knows exactly what to do and how to do it. In addition to that, it's self-correcting. So this is a knowledge base for the AI agent that constantly builds on itself, and it's self-correcting. What it's not is a place where it organizes the information that I'm going to use. Okay, this is the information for it to know how it's going to do its job and how to use the tools that it needs to use to be able to do its job. The next thing we'll look at is Notion. So this is where I store, like I said, this is where I store all of my own resources. So this is where my content lives, my current projects, my deal pipeline. So one thing I've done is I've given my AI assistant an MCP connection into Notion so that it's able to refer to what I'm seeing as my day-to-day, like what's going on in my business. I'm using this in the terminal as opposed to something like Claude desktop, is because my computer's too old and it can't actually run Claude desktop. But as you can see here, I asked it if I have any meetings this afternoon. Yes, one meeting, which is correct. I already had one meeting this morning and I only have one more meeting today, which is this meeting. So this is the output that you get from having a personal assistant. So I'm not running ads right now, but I've got SEO and content going. So this will be not the thing that just generates all my content, but it's got access to like a SERP MCP and is creating SEO strategy. Maybe that's keywords or backlink building or blog content or something like that. And then I have an actual content engine for social media content. But the reason why I wanted to make this video is because I do a lot of outbound. And I wanted to show you how outbound works in a way that can replace Clay. And this includes all of my discovery, enrichment, and copywriting, including follow-ups and everything. This is to manage my entire outbound strategy. So the way that this works right now is I've got this outbound engine connected to its own set of agent instructions and MCP tools. Think of this as it's got a set of instructions. It's got its own MCP tools connected to Google and other like scraping tools, but it's also got access to N8N via some webhooks so that it can outsource even more to something that is super deterministic. And in this case, if I'm running the discovery agent, we've got a set of MCP tools, but then it knows to call a webhook to here, which is then another agentic team. Okay. And each of these is specialized in its own key area. So you've got something that's like a website researcher, KDM finder, enrichment agent, LinkedIn. Each of these has its own set of instructions and tools, and it's using a different model as well. Org discovery pipeline, for example, we can determine, for instance, what model it needs to be, like Sonnet versus Haiku versus Opus, and what its role is. Like this one's a delegated and this one's a local subagent. Solutions that I came up with to reduce context bloating and optimize usage tokens was creating everything that can be super deterministic and super formulaic and super repeatable into an N8N workflow. And the way that my local agents have access to it is via a webhook. I tell my assistant, run the enrichment pipeline. It delegates to it first goes to Obsidian for instructions on how to do this, goes and looks at the playbook, comes back, goes to its subagent team. We go to outbound, we go to enrichment, and then it's got its own instructions. And now we've delegated this to even more subagents at a deeper level, which are using this N8N workflow as well as one other to do some research on the discovered organization's website, their key decision maker, any more information I can find about their LinkedIn, their news, PR, other social media, things like that, using different tools. And it's all on the Gemini 2.5 Flash model. So it's extremely cheap. For every 100 companies I run this end to end for, it only costs me like $10, $15, maybe $20 in usage. And so I'm reaching out to about 100 of these companies a month. You could make it 1,000 if you want, but my personal capacity for doing this solo is like 100 super well-researched companies per month, because I'm not sending templated spam to everybody. I'm doing a ton of research on every company, finding a good opportunity to reach out and reaching out according to that opportunity. I think this would be a good time to show you what this looks like in practice. Let's say we want to follow up on some emails that have already gone out. Let's do draft all the FU1s. This is my name for first follow-up. So these are prospects that have already gotten an email but did not respond, maybe last week or something like that. Okay, it's all done. So let's run the tape back and look at what happened. As you can see, there are 4 background tasks running. So these are local agents running behind the scenes here. But what's really handy about using these is when they're done, this agent here will wake up. Got some results back, right? There's some drafts that got created for some active prospects in my pipeline. We'll take a look at those in a second. And it's also got some other thoughts, it looks like. So One of my strategies with reaching out is if I'm going to follow up with someone, I'm never just going to say, hey, just a quick bump or a quick nudge. I'm always going to add value. In this case, what I instruct, because what I do when I do this all by hand, super manually, is if I follow up with someone, I'll go look for something new about them, something interesting. So in this case, what I've instructed my agentic team to do is find something new, like this webinar that this organization's got going on today. These are really good insights for your members. This would also be something really beneficial for your non-members. And even when the industry at large is not in a growth, good. I'd say the rest of this is actually pretty good, but now I've developed a sort of natural transition between the two areas, right? This might be a little bit on the long side, especially for a follow-up. And then additionally, one of the shortcomings of this system is it's not responding in thread. So if we go back to the original framework for how this all works, like I'm going to ask my assistant to run the full outbound pipeline. So it's going to run its discovery pipeline, which is a whole agentic team around organization discovery and surface level research for ICP matching. And then once we have a good list of new organizations, then it's going to run enrichment for those, which is really the job of an SDR, a sales development representative, to go and find all that deep, juicy stuff, find all the context that we can using these tools, right? Writing aspect of it. And then in my workflow, personally, when something lands in the drafts, I check it every time. But what this enables me to do is instead of blasting out 1,000 3-line generic AI slop emails that don't actually connect with people, in my business, it's really bespoke consulting work. I can't blast out the same message to everybody. It's got to be super thorough, super researched. Like I got to have a problem solution focus. Might not be the same case for certain agencies or like software. But for my business, I need to be super prepared, super well researched. And so this is how I can run my research and enrichment at scale and be really thorough and really complete while keeping the outreach itself human. As you build a system, an agentic system, there are 3 key areas you're going to need. You're going to need a system for developing the agents themselves and the sub-agents. They all need their own set of instructions. They need tools, and they need instructions on how to use those tools, right? That's where your agent MD files and your Claude MD files are going to be really useful. Something like Obsidian to build local knowledge and context for your agent to refer to so that it knows exactly what to do and exactly how to do everything. And then Notion for your own information to manage your deals pipeline and your project pipeline, and Access throughout so that everything's connected, so that when an update is made somewhere, it's also made elsewhere, and everything stays connected. Everything becomes a fully synchronized system. That's leveraging systems as a business, and I hope you found this helpful. Again, my name is Ryan. I run New Growth Strategies. If this is something that you want in your business, build it out. If you want help, then get in contact with me using the link in the description below or visit my website at newgrowth.com. Thanks.